Hello and welcome to the next phase of Dublin Civic Trust project here in 18 Ormond Quay, which is the back building behind me here, covered in scaffolding, which is known as 67 Arran Street East. And I suppose this is a more intriguing proposition than the front building, which is the merchant shop house overlooking the river. It was rebuilt in 1843, but the back building survived that alteration. This dates from the 1760s, and it has good plasterwork, decorative plasterwork and architectural joinery inside, which dates from that time. So it's Sunday, it's fairly quiet, so it gives us a good chance to show you behind the scaffolding and to show you what we've been doing over the past few weeks. And just before we do that, we'll show you what the building looked like when we first bought it about 6 years ago. And you can see that the upper floors were covered in pebbled ash. All the window opes were blocked with breeze blocks. And the ground floor, where you can see that green painted render, that's in fact 1840s Roman cement. And that was applied when the front building was rebuilt in the 1840s as a grocer shop, and the back building was converted for use as a warehouse to serve that shop. So the large opening with the architrave on the ground floor was inserted at that time, and it was only about 70 years later, in about 1911 or 1912, that the two horizontal slit windows were inserted into that opening. And unfortunately they fairly butchered the 1840s alterations and went right up into the 1760s structure. So the challenge that we have today is to bring the building back to that hybrid appearance of both the 1760s and the 1840s by investigating the structure. So going behind the scaffolding now and to show you some of those works will give you some idea of how the building was altered over the years. So here we are on the first lift of the scaffolding, and we're looking at the Roman cement shop front on the story just below us here. And this is the quality of the 1760s brickwork that has just been revealed by our contractors, Nolan's Group, specialist conservation contractors who also worked on the front building for us in 18 Ormond Quay. And you can see the remarkable success of their removal of pebbled ash over the past few weeks, which was done by hand, but using electric tools with a spade head to vibrate the pebbled ash and to delaminate it from the 1760s red brick. And it looks dusty, it looks coarse, but in a scheme of things this is in remarkably good condition. You can see that the irises of the brick are still very sharp. For the most part we've managed to retain a large amount of the brick face. And what helped this process is that before the building was pebbled ashed, you can see that it was painted. So the brick was probably painted in the 1940s or the 50s, and then the pebbled ash was applied in the mid-1960s. So that has helped the pebbled ash to delaminate a little bit easier than would otherwise have been the case. You can see the quality. The windowsills are indicative of the mid-18th century. They're huge, chunky square sections, which are very nice. But not all is well with this facade, and if we go up to the next lift, you can begin to see some of the structural issues that we're facing with this building. So the window heads are not in good nick on this level. This is the main first floor level, and in fact we're going to have to dismantle all of these heads and rebuild them. And you can see on this one, for example, the typical horizontal structural cracking that is very common in window heads of this period. So the cracks run along the lines of the headers straight through the stretcher and back and back and back all the way along. And this is the horror show of a worst case scenario. So this is going to have to be completely dismantled down onto the scaffold, new bricks inserted to replace the cracked stretchers, and the whole thing reassembled. But that's doable, and it's part of the circular approach of reusing material from the original facade, and that's the general approach throughout with this project. One other difficulty and a common feature of brick buildings is that because the window reveal is usually only half a brick thick compared with the brick and a half of the overall depth of the wall, it means that because of the sash box that's positioned behind, you end up with this vertical cracking the whole way down the side of the window. So all of those cracked stretchers will have to be taken out and replaced, and you can see that process underway on the other side of the window here. But what is also interesting here is that it shows, I suppose, how these buildings are put together, and you can see that the sash box frame, the sashy for the sashes, hence the name sash window, is inserted underneath the timber head. So the timber head is holding up really the whole upper facade, and it's really only the flat arch of the window that's holding up the outer face of the brickwork, but it's this massive timber head underneath that's actually doing most of the work in holding up the facade. So we can have another a look just up to the next level, and you can see some trial cleaning has been undertaken here, and also some trial pointing, and we'll talk about that on another day. But you can see the lovely colour of the brickwork with that lovely russet tone that we're hoping we'll be able to reveal across the facade. And here on the top lift of the scaffolding, you can see some of the pebble dash is still clinging on for dear life there, extending the whole way down the building. And one of the big challenges we have are these chaps here, the structural steels with ties that are going all the way through to the back wall of the building. This is our very glamorous 1960s flat roof on the front building in Ormond Quay, but the ties go all the way through. So in order for these plates to come off, a new structural strategy has to be devised of tying the front of the front facade into the floor structures and back into the rest of the building before these can come off. So we're working on that at the moment. The brick we're looking at here along the attic story is an Edwardian brick, probably a replacement brick from 1911, 1912, when the other changes were carried out. And Nolan's have undertaken a sample area of cleaning for us here, and you can see it's actually a lovely dark colour. It's a good match for the brick downstairs. And just above them we have these lovely chunky massive capstones on the parapet, and you can see just how thick these are compared with the relatively skinny capstone dating from the 1840s on the front building, which really shows that the change in construction techniques and quality over those 80 to 100 years or so. So check back in with us soon when we'll have further updates about the shop front way down there on the ground floor and the pointing strategy for the brickwork.